Good morning, children. It's literature time, and today we will learn a lesson from Unit 6, that is the written word of your main course book. The name of the lesson is How I Taught My Grandmother to Read, and the author is Sudha Murthy. So, without further ado, let's get started. We all know Sudha Murthy. I don't think so. Anyone who is interested in literature would not know this lady, a great social worker. Of course, she's an Indian, and apart from being a social worker, she's an author also. But very interesting facts of her life are she actually started her career as computer scientist and an engineer. Then she landed up being the chairperson of Infosys Foundation. Infosys, you all know, is a famous IT company owned by Narayan Murthy, who is her husband. And then she became a member of public health care initiatives of the Gates Foundation. She was born on 19th August 1950 in Shigaon, and she completed her engineering and technology from BVG College of Engineering, uh, and she has two children. She has had varied experiences in her life. She started as computer scientist and engineer, then she became the chairperson. Apart from this, she has inclination towards writing also. She is very good at writing. She has a number of books to her credit, and that's why she is very well known in the literary world also. She is also a very famous social worker, and whenever the society needs her, she's always there. She's written books of different genre. So, for example, her stories are on common lives, then views on donation, hospitality and realization. The titles of the stories which have the theme as hospitality and realization are Sweet Hospitality, Wise and Otherwise. Then she's also written collection of stories, How I Taught My Grandmother to Read and other stories. So actually this particular lesson, which is a part of our MCB book, is a part of this book, How I Taught My Grandmother to Read and Other Stories. Then most of the time, or most of the books, the theme of the books are, she likes to write about people from common walks of life, and she loves to throw her views on human values such as charity, kindness, and self-realization. She's a very sensitive writer. She tries to highlight the sufferings of the people. The main characters of her books are most of the time highly educated. They don't compromise with the circumstances or the difficult situations that are there in their lives. And the all women characters in her books are highly principled. They don't compromise with their principle. Children, have you ever thought why India is a developing country still, whereas the countries in the West are developed? Because a lot depends on the literacy. More number of literate people, then faster the development takes place. In a country like India, literacy is the main foundation for social and economic growth. And after the Britishers, moved out of India, the literacy rate was very, very low. Then over these years in the past, the literacy rate has come up from 12% to 74%, and because of which India has changed manifold in terms of society and in terms of economy. So there has been a parabolic change in the graph of growth as far as society and economy is concerned. So, this chapter actually highlights the importance of literacy. It also, the other theme of the story can be love and human relationship, how both are connected. Then it also talks about the true development of a country is impossible unless we create an atmosphere of education for everyone. The moral is that attaining knowledge is a lifelong process, and there is no age bar for learning. anyone at any age can learn anything. The only thing we require is determination, which one of the characters of the story had. Through the character of the grandmother, the importance of learning is highlighted, and Sudha Murthy also tries to show that education, she's trying to throw light uh, on the life which existed in the past. I mean, the society, the kind of society which existed in the past. The education, women education was not given much of importance, and which resulted into, you know, illiteracy that could be seen all around. The story also highlights an important issue of providing education to all, irrespective of their age or gender. Every citizen, each and every citizen of India or of any country for that matter, has the right to receive education, irrespective of the age, at any age, and irrespective of the gender also. Now, moving on to this particular story, How I Taught My Grandmother to Read, it is actually a work of fiction. It's a narrative which Sudha Murthy, or the protagonist or the main character, is narrating. So then it's a short story which is written by, of course, Sudha Murthy. This story was actually published in 2004 by Penguin Books India. This is the publication house which published the story the first time. Then later on, it became a part of Standard 9 in CBSE syllabus. And in one line, if the theme of the story can be described as, it narrates the incident where the author recalls how she taught her illiterate grandmother to read, and how she helped her illiterate grandmother change her status from being illiterate to being literate. Children, please read pages 120 and 121 carefully. The summary is like this. The authoress was 12 years old and she used to stay with her grandparents in North Karnataka. Since there were very few diversions or sources of entertainment, the entire family used to wait for a weekly magazine called Karamveera. And why weekly magazine? Because transport facility was not well developed those days, and the weekly magazine used to arrive with a newspaper one day late. So all the people who were interested in reading weekly magazines, they used to wait for this magazine desperately, and her grandmother was one of them. This magazine was publishing a famous writer Triveni's novel named Kashi Yatri as a serial. As a serial means it was published in parts. So there are some magazines which publish the entire story in a single edition. But this particular story was divided into parts, and as a serial it was published every week. So the novel dealt with the protagonist's struggle to visit Kashi. It's an old lady who has an ardent desire to go to Kashi or Varanasi, just like any other Hindu. And this story also has a young orphan girl who falls in love, but she does not have any money to marry her beloved. So then in the end of the story, this old lady learns about this orphan girl's desire to marry her beloved. So what she does is she gives away all her savings that she had kept for herself to visit Kashi. So at that point in time, she realizes that the happiness of the orphan girl is more important than worshipping Lord Vishweshwara at Kashi. So that's why she decides to give away all her savings to the girl. Now, children, since grandmother believed in Kashi Yatra as a pilgrimage, she could identify with the trials and tribulations of the main character of Kashi Yatra. She could relate very well with the main character of Kashi Yatra. So that is the reason she had so much interest in Kashi Yatra. The grandmother used to listen to the story very carefully, which her granddaughter used to narrate to her. She also used to memorize the story, and in the evening, when she met her friends at the courtyard, she used to share the story. So, this shows the kind of interest she had in this particular story. Now, please read on page number 122. Now, on page number 122, it is written that once there was a wedding in the family, so the authoress means the granddaughter had to go to the neighboring village for her cousin's wedding. And those days weddings, they used to be a great grand affair. Some wedding celebrations used to even extend for a week. So this girl, young girl, granddaughter, also was away from her grandmother for about a week. And when she returned, she was very surprised because she saw her grandmother crying. And this was the first time ever she saw her grandmother cry. So she tried to, find out the reason, but the grandmother refused. Finally, her grandmother, after finishing the day's household chores, she shared with her granddaughter that when she was young, she was married at an early age, then she had children at an early age, and actually she went back to her past, brought she was forced to go back in her past, travel, revisit her past. And that really made her sad, because in spite of the wish and willingness to go to school and study, her parents did not send her to school, because in those days most of the parents, their main objective was to ensure that their girl child grows up and is married off in a good family. So the same thing happened to this grandmother also. So then she was married off at an early age. She had children at an early age. Once she had children, she got busy feeding them, bringing them up, and all of these things kept her busy. So she could not spare time for her education. Moreover, education of girls was not considered as important. So, in her granddaughter's absence, grandmother really faced a tough time. Though the weekly magazine was, delivered to her place every day, she used to try and turn pages. While turning the pages of Kashi Yatre, she used to try to decipher what is there, what is written in the next episode of Kashi Yatre, but all her efforts futile, because she could not actually read, and she was an illiterate woman, and she really felt desperate, disheartened, and helpless. The only thing she could do was gaze at the pictures, look at the pictures, and but she was not able to read a single word. All of this she shares with her granddaughter. Please read pages 123 and 124. In these pages, the writer mentions that this particular incident actually, arouses a desire in grandmother's mind to learn Kannada alphabets. So she makes up her mind and she discloses her desire to her granddaughter that she wants to learn how to read and write. And she also promises herself that by Dasara, she will make sure that she is able to read and write. Now, this idea is actually not liked by her granddaughter, because she feels it weird, a lady of around 65 years with gray hair is wanting to learn how to read and write. The granddaughter finds this idea very weird. So she makes fun of her, but all of it does not, shakes her determination to read and write, or to learn how to read Kannada alphabets. No wonder grandmother then, I mean, requests her granddaughter to be her teacher and teach her. The granddaughter starts taking her lessons. The grandmother proves to be an ideal student, and in no time, definitely before Dasara, she could read, repeat, and write in Kannada. So on the D day, that is on Dasara, the granddaughter, means the authoress of this particular story, presents her with a copy of novel Kashi Yatri. as a token of appreciation. And she also tells her grandmother to read a few lines to ensure that now grandmother can read independently. And as a mark of respect, uh, grandmother touches her feet of her granddaughter, um, as a befitting tribute. She wants to give a tribute to her granddaughter, even though her granddaughter is younger than her. But those days it was a tradition that students were expected to touch the feet of their teacher. Age was not a criteria. If anyone is your teacher, whatever his or her age is, the students, paid tribute or respect to their teachers by touching their feet. So that's what the grandmother did by touching the feet of her granddaughter. An interesting feature that we get to see in this particular story is that there is a story within a story. And which is the story that is within this story is Kashi Yatre, which was written by Triveni, a Kannada writer. The general theme of the story is it deals with the psychological issues of humanity. And we've already, learned that in this particular story, there's an old lady who desires to go to Kashi, which is a religious place of Hindus. And she saves a lot of money to ensure that she's able to visit this place before she dies. So once she comes across an orphan who longs to marry her lover but has no money to marry. So then, after some time, the old lady understands the desire of the young girl and the need of the young girl. So she gives all the money which she had kept as a saving to the girl and helps her get married off. So by this gesture, she shows that her visit to Kashi is not as important as the desire of this orphan girl to marry her beloved. Now, there are two main characters in this story. One is the grandmother. So, let's just go through the character sketch. So, the grandmother was 62 years old when the narrator taught her Kannada alphabet. And in a very brief manner, in a very concise manner, these are the qualities possessed by this character of grandmother. She's mature, she's religious, of course, and she's far-sighted also. Then she's very, very determined. It's because of a determination that she changes her status from being illiterate to literate. Enthusiastic, yes, because the narrator describes her that she used to learn and do her homework also on time. Very wise and decisive, of course. Once she decides that she's going to change her status, she's going to learn how to read and write, she eventually lands up doing it. So the grandmother was illiterate and got married at an early age and had children. She always regretted, not going to school. So she made sure that her children and grandchildren studied well. She did everything. That's why she ensured that her children and grandchildren received good education. She had never visited Kashi and so was interested in knowing about the story of the novel Kashi Yatre, which was published in a weekly magazine, Karamvira. She was a strong willed, determined, hard working lady. All these adjectives befit this character. She practiced very, very sincerely to learn Kannada. Once she decides that I got to, be independent, I should read and write independently, she actually, achieves her goal of becoming literate before Dasara. Then, after she becomes literate, she touched the feet of a teacher who's her granddaughter, who's actually younger in age, yet she does not hesitate to touch her feet because she considers her granddaughter as her teacher. So as a mark of respect, and gifted her a frock material also. Yes, it is called as Guru Dakshina in our Hindu culture. So as a part of Guru Dakshina, she presents her frock material. This shows that she knew her scriptures well, which says that a teacher should be respected irrespective of gender and age. This shows that she was very humble, grateful, and cultured. The second main character is the granddaughter, which also plays an important role in the story. The granddaughter is caring, of course, very caring. Otherwise, a girl of 12-year-old to be so patient to sit with a grandparent and teach her every day is appears or seems to be very um, unusual. Then she is very innocent also and a responsible character. Yes, she takes up the responsibility of teaching her grandmother, and she performs her responsibility very, very sincerely. She reads out her illiterate grandmother next episode of her favorite serial every week diligently. Diligently means sincerely and every day. Then her innocence gets highlighted when she first makes fun of her grandmother's resolution of getting literate at the age of 82. The moment her grandmother discloses the idea or of her desire to learn how to read and write, she immediately laughs and makes fun. This highlights the innocence in this girl's character. Then she's a very good and dedicated teacher, of course. A girl who's 12 years old sits with a grandmother every day to teach is again a very unusual feature. She fulfills a task of teaching her grandmother, and she teaches her grandmother how to write Kannada alphabets. Then she's a responsible girl also because she takes up this as a challenge of making a grandmother literate, and she works hard along along with her grandmother. She provides every kind of support to her grandmother to become literate, and she's humble also to accept her grandmother's gift. As I told you earlier, that in olden times, students used to give to their teacher a mark of respect, used to give them something as a mark of respect. Now, children, this is an opportunity for all of you to become a writer just like Triveni. So, step into the shoes of Triveni. And if ever you have come across in your real life an old woman or a man who is determined to accomplish uh, any particular objective in his or her life, and you can share the story of that person with your friend, try and find out at least 5 words that express the emotions of the old man or woman. Children, the takeaway from this story is that there is no age or gender which will decide the person's right to receive education. And you all, as educated citizens of India, the future citizens of India, can contribute a lot in, spreading literacy in our country in any possible way. In a very small way, we all can contribute so that our country is able to move from being a developing country to a developed country. Thank you all, and please do take down the notes and solve the exercises given at the end of this lesson. Thank you.